Did you know the Griffins are actually pretty dumb? Don't worry, we'll hold for your gasps of shock. But to understand just how idiotic they can be, let's take a look at the Griffin family's certifiably dumbest moments. And we're starting with the head of the household, Peter Griffin. You may recognize Peter as being the poster child for a bottle of stupid juice, but let's look at just how dumb this guy can be. Our first stop is the episode Lois Comes Out of Her Shell, where the family celebrates Lois's birthday, though it's something she's not too keen on being reminded of.
I'd rather let this one slip by. I don't need to be reminded how old I'm getting.
Well, I guess Peter must have had a case of major brain failure for a second there, because I'm pretty sure what he heard was I'd rather be reminded of how old I'm getting. And so he mistakenly honors her wish later that week at her birthday party.
Lois, you may not be the young filly you were when I met you, but you're still my reliable old plow horse.
Okay, see, that's not terrible. It means he's not ready to put a bullet in her and ship her off to the glue factory just yet. But obviously, these words distress Lois enough that she decides to skip the midlife crisis and go straight to midlife psychosis.
But look who just got herself a sick new tat.
Oh my God, Mom!
At least now if she ever needs a career change, she's got the perfect name for a stage dancer. And while Peter loves his wife's new young attitude, he quickly realizes he's unable to keep up with her.
So if you don't want to run with the wild horses, then go back to the barn and go to bed.
A lot of horse talk this episode. I guess Till Death is still fresh in everybody's memory. While a lot of the craziness here does come from Lois, Peter isn't exactly innocent either. You know he knows Lois doesn't like talking about her age, and that little speech at her party was the final push she needed to send her into crazy town. And Peter would drive the entire town crazy when the family won the lottery in lottery fever, which he achieved with a genius plan.
Where did you get the money for all these?
Simple. I took out a second mortgage on a house.
What?
Well, you gotta spend a life-ruining amount of money to make a life-ruining amount of money. And after hours and hours of checking thousands of lottery tickets, his stupidity actually pays off.
We won!
What?
Let me see that. Yes, we won the lottery!
And it starts out pretty sweet, allowing him to do all the cool things we all wish we could do, like buying a round of beers at the bar, quitting your job, or pooping on your boss's desk. Actually, I don't think you need a lot of money to do that last one, just enough to post bail. But it all starts to turn a little more sour when the power of money begins to go to Peter's head.
From now on, we're all gonna do whatever I want to do, because I'm the one with the dough.
Okay, I guess that's fair.
And here Peter displays a great example of absolute power corrupting absolutely. What is it about people that as soon as they get rich, they just want to commit as many human rights violations as possible?
Hey, Joe, open your eye. Gotcha!
What the hell, Peter? You shot him in the eye!
And eventually, not only is Peter left with no friends, but also with no money. Seems like as good a time as ever to play the lottery.
Holy we won twice and we're right back here again.
It takes an idiot to blow millions of dollars, but it takes a true idiot to do it twice. From here on out, the only thing Peter should be allowed to carry in his wallet is Monopoly money. But when Peter decides to cash in on the world of children's television, he's rewarded for his childish antics with a well-deserved puma attack, and you can't do that on television, Peter.
And now, boys and girls, it's time for Petey's Funhouse!
So Peter scores himself a children's show on public access television, which means he can regress to a childlike nature, a move his brain was already way ahead of him on. They really put anyone on television. Now that I think about it, I wonder if it's about time this channel made the jump to PBS.
How old were you?
8?
Ah, too old! Too old to be peeing yourself, baby pee pants!
And things only get dumber when Peter decides to introduce a new character to the Funhouse, who is definitely not based on anyone he knows or has a rocky about to be sleeping in separate bed style relationship with.
Do you like pie? I guess! Well, how does this taste?
And if he had continued to have this show, we probably would have witnessed the world's first execution of a puppet live on air. Someone should have done that to Animal a long time ago, but that's besides the point. But the show doesn't last much longer as Peter commits to the absolute dumbest bit he could have thought of.
Is the puma ready? Maybe we should poke him with the "is the puma ready" stick.
Real amateur stuff here. Everyone knows that tigers are the best big cats for the stage. You know, until they're not.
I'm asking you who's on first!
Not super sure how he thought this was going to play out, but this was probably the only outcome that could have happened. And now those children are left with an incredible memory that will last them a lifetime, no matter how much therapy they go through. And Peter ends up doing a lifetime of damage to his body after becoming addicted to cigarettes and secondhand smoke.
Peter, what are you doing down there?
Nothing.
Well, it doesn't seem like nothing.
So after picking up smoking to take more breaks at work, Peter goes a little too overboard and can't seem to do a single thing without smoking. You know how you can't eat anything without watching something at the same time? Yeah, this is kind of what people did before that.
Nothing like an after paper mint to get rid of that paper getting breath.
But eventually he takes it too far and ends up looking like a dehydrated ghost. That's right, even after you die, you still need to be getting your 8 glasses of water a day.
Oh my God! How did this happen?
It's from smoking.
It's not that bad.
So a smart person, or even someone with a half-functioning brain, would figure it's time to stop smoking. But this is Peter we're talking about here. Not only does he not stop, but he goes as far as to turn it into a whole career.
And I think you'd be perfect for our new anti-smoking campaign.
Me? You'd want me on TV?
Well, you know what they say, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Your very, very, very shortened life. So Peter continues to smoke and make his health worse, only to eventually get dumped from his role altogether. Luckily, this is a cartoon, so everything ends up being fine after one simple exterior transition shot. Well, we've done all we could. Calling Peter's story a cautionary tale would imply that we all don't understand how bad smoking can be. Sometimes Peter is just his own curated, select brand of stupid. And the words Peter and chainsaw should never be used in the same sentence, but unfortunately that ends up being the case when he gets his hands on one in Boys and Squirrels.
I want a chainsaw!
Yeah, you know how this goes. Now that thing is his entire personality, only this time his personality is capable of sawing a person in half. So the chance of survival rate for the family is now at an all-time low, because if they don't get viciously mauled by the chainsaw, they'll probably end up dying choking on the exhaust.
Turn that chainsaw off!
Not a chance, Lois. You know how hard it was to get that thing started?
Well, he's right on that account. Some things are just a pain to get going again. That's why I always leave my car running. I just chain it up to a light post outside like a bike. But the power of the chainsaw isn't meant for everyone, which Peter quickly learns while trying to cut down a tree.
Oh, my arm! Oh, son of a...
A broken arm? You fumble using the limb separating device and you break your arm? He's even too stupid to get the correct injury. And Peter ends up being too stupid to realize that copious amounts of junk food are bad for you and saturated fat guy, leading to him getting so big that he needs to be craned out of a food truck.
This, Lois, is my new food truck, specializing in all the delicious, unhealthy foods that you won't let me eat.
And not long after, those delicious, unhealthy foods become all he eats. Most of these food combinations he talks about sound absolutely disgusting, but kind of in a car wreck way, where you want to look away, but you also kind of want to see what it's all about.
Hey, yeah, I'll have the Swedish fish tacos.
You want the can of chili dumped on top or on the side?
Your move, binging with Babish. But over time, the weight of the junk food Peter consumes really starts to have an adverse effect on his, well, weight.
I'm stuck in a truck!
What? What are you talking about?
I knew this would happen. You're too fat to get out.
If only he had seen the signs. Unfortunately, the signs were on his toes, and he hadn't seen those little guys in a minute. But don't worry, the city will lend a hand to get him out in the most dignified way possible.
Nobody look! This is a private, gross matter!
But to be fair, the beached whale treatment was pretty much all he deserved after that streak of stupidity. He'll just be lucky if it stops there and he doesn't blow up. Look it up, that's a real thing. And college is the perfect breeding ground for stupid decisions, which means it becomes the ideal spot for more Peter stupidity, and Meg goes to college.
Heads up!
Dad, what the hell are you doing?
Well, he can't just let Meg have all the fun of going to college, so he decides to stick around and get the full academic experience himself. Man, his work must have very forgiving PTO days.
Meg, you gotta get me out of here! These people are out of their minds! Do not go AD pie, Meg!
It's already too late for him. He's already been sucked into the paying money for friends college scam. I know cults that at least let you keep your dignity.
And I'm feeling the burn.
Bernie Sanders?
No, none of my hippie girlfriends shower and my crotch itches.
But Peter's presence on campus continues to annoy Meg, and when she pushes back, he lets slip that he paid someone to get Meg into the college.
Yeah, your whole application was fake.
Meg, is this true?
And not only is Meg about to be kicked out of college, but Peter and Lois are also on the verge of winding up in jail for fraud. So it sounds like college made him doubly stupid. Definitely worth the 2 decades of student loans they'll have to pay. But 2 idiots are better than 1, at least when you're the one watching. And that's exactly what we get when Peter and Bill Clinton become best friends in Bill and Peter's Bogus Journey.
Lift with your lower back in a jerking, twisting motion. Ah!
Oh my God!
So after Peter hurts himself while helping out Bill Clinton, the former president decides to take him on a silly adventure to make him feel youthful again.
Is this Linda Tripp?
Yes.
You shouldn't have talked, you stupid b****. I hope you die!
It takes me back to my youthful days of calling in death threats. Don't look at me like that. You know we all did that. And things only get dumber as the guys let a little Mary Jane influence their next activity.
Dude, we could eat that pig.
What?
Dude, come on.
We could totally eat that pig.
They're probably not considering a few of the steps it takes to eat a pig, but when you're zooted out of your mind, you'll find a way. Luckily, no one gets hurt or dies during these two's wacky antics. Well, except for any respect you might have had for Lois, which probably wasn't a lot, but there was still just enough to kill.
I need to have a word with you. Well, you certainly are very persuasive.
But don't worry, Peter's either dumb enough or smart enough to know how to even this out.
You and I need to have a talk. Boy, you are good. You are really good.
But let's look at Peter's wife, Lois. Typically, she's considered one of the more level-headed and decently intelligent characters out of the family, but more often than not, her drive to act on impulse causes her to make some pretty dumb decisions, like in It Takes a Village Idiot and I Married One.
Mr. Mayor, I promise you this. Next election, I'm gonna run against you. And I'm gonna win.
So Lois decides to run for mayor against Adam West, but in order to appeal to the median voter, she's gonna have to dumb down some of her policies.
9/11 was bad.
I agree with that.
What are you gonna do, be against the candidate that says that? Man, this politics stuff is easy. Sweaty Clam 2028, anyone? And believe it or not, Lois ends up winning, but to keep the voter base pleased, she has to continue to only talk about nonsense.
Hitler is plotting with the Legion of Doom.
And you don't want to mess with those guys. I mean, look at those spiky shoulder pads. How are you even supposed to touch them? But when Lois is able to swing a new tax hike, she decides to use a little bit of that new money to treat herself.
Spending even 1 penny of that money on yourself is incredibly unethical.
Oh, come on, it was only 600.
Well, considering a crime like that can land you 10 years in prison, you honestly should have spent more. Make it worth it, you know? And this is kind of the trend that comes with a lot of Lois's moments. Not only are they dumb, they're also selfish. And her selfishness would nearly get Stewie killed in prescription heroin, which saw Lois getting addicted to painkillers.
Where are you going?
Oh, yeah.
Huh, I wanna oh yeah.
Okay, if we're being honest, there's no way Brian would go through this whole episode and not get addicted. He's got so many vices, what's one more added to the belt? But Lois ends up getting hooked to the point where she starts tweaking when they eventually run out.
I'm not gonna take the chance that he doesn't have enough pills just in case.
Lois, I'm good. I don't want to get hooked on those things.
You'd think a seasoned addict like Brian would have been able to notice the signs in Lois immediately. It's too bad he doesn't, because when Lois drops her last remaining pill in the toilet, she uses Stewie's scuba diving skills to get it.
Damn you!
Come on, you just touched it!
Thankfully, Brian manages to step in just in time. Good thing too, because I don't think Lois would have been able to get through Stewie's funeral without the pill. It's kind of wild that a lot of Peter's dumbest moments come at his own expense, but Lois's might just get you killed if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And while Lois's actions in The Manchurian Candidate don't get Peter killed, she does enough damage to his psyche that he probably wishes it did.
How do I put this? Let's just say Peter doesn't always Munchausen my proxy.
Hope you're picking up what I'm putting down, because I'm sure as hell not going to explain it to you. So the couple turns to hypnosis so everybody can be pleased. And judging by Lois's face, pleased might actually be underselling it. But the real issue comes with Lois abusing the trigger sound that sends Peter into his romantic trance, using it multiple times throughout the day while Peter doesn't seem to remember any of it.
I want to ask you something. Go fish!
Now this is a new low. Hypnotizing Peter so Lois can win a card game? Does the sanctity of go fish mean nothing to this woman? Well, her dumb misuse of Peter's hypnosis comes to bite her in the butt. Another thing that Peter is probably going to need hypnosis for. But she learns the unfortunate truth that she and her mother both watch the same entertainment news shows.
Oh my god, oh my god!
Yeah, we've all seen what happens next. The scream, the shock, the uncomfortable ride home. Trust me, the less you think about what just happened in that room, the better. And in case the implications behind that scene weren't gross enough, Lois decides to play into the implication that she slept with Chris while she's working undercover at the school in Teacher's Heavy Pet.
You see what I see?
Griffin's getting in the car with Miss Pewterschmidt.
So when Lois starts teaching at the school under a disguise, a rumor gets spread around about Chris and Miss Pewterschmidt sleeping together. A rumor he's not that quick to deny, mind you. Look, sometimes you gotta make sacrifices to achieve high school popularity, like talking about your mom in a way that should get you sent to prison.
Sleeping with Miss Pewterschmidt. But we're not sleeping, you know. It's hard to sleep when you're doing stuff.
Not to play into this gross fantasy, but let's be real. Miss Pewterschmidt could do a lot better than Chris. But when she finally catches wind of the rumor, she decides to confront him about it.
Oh, honey, you wanted something and you lied. You were manifesting.
Yeah, not sure that's the takeaway Chris probably needed from this situation, but sure. And if that wasn't bad enough, Lois decides to call an audible and double down on the rumor to help Chris.
He was 22 inches and 11 pounds, but I knew he was gonna change my life for the better.
She's talking about when she gave birth to him, but without that funny little thing called context, she basically just admitted to a jailable offense. I guess in a sick and twisted way, this was kinda nice of her to do, but in the long run, this was just plain dumb. And now let's turn to Chris, the apple that did not fall very far from Peter's tree of stupidity. Chris definitely gives the family a run for their money on being the dumbest, especially when you consider how oblivious he's been to Herbert's advancements over the years.
Please, God, let me just sniff his hat. Let me just sniff his hat.
That's like letting a shark just get a whiff of blood. You really think it's gonna stop there? But in the episode German Guy, Chris would actually need to rely on Herbert when his new elderly friend Franz Gutentag turns out to be an unsavory character.
You're not gonna get away with this, Mr. Google Search.
Oh, but I think that I will.
What are the odds that the one German guy in town turns out to be the worst kind of German you can be? Just once, can it be the type of German that likes to frolic through fields in their lederhosen? But when Peter manages to disarm Franz, he puts the gun in Chris's hands. Possibly an even worse outcome.
How do I know which one to shoot?
What?
How do I know which one is the real dad?
Look, it's Chris's first day with eyes and ears. You gotta be patient with him. To be fair, Peter doesn't know when Chris's birthday is, so it looks like Franz is his new daddy now. None of you freaks clip me saying that last sentence. Yeah, that's right. We've been looking at your comments.
February 8th.
Dad!
You know what? And I can't believe I'm saying this, but Herbert could do a lot better than Chris. Gotta up your standards, man. This one's as dumb as dirt. And his idiocy would often end up getting other people hurt, like when he further concussed Stewie and Cop and a Halfwit.
All right, and nobody's blocking.
Oh my God, Stewie!
So after Brian convinces Stewie to try out for football, Stewie ends up getting seriously hurt during a game. This also counts as a Brian dumb moment, but we've got plenty of those to cover later on.
Oh my God. Can you see me?
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, he's not fine. Luckily, Dr. Chris is here with the latest in concussion treatments to help Stewie get over this hill.
Chris, are you crazy?
Shh, let's just let him sleep this off.
Yeah, you just gotta let the brain bleed out some of that bad blood. Surprised you didn't have a few leeches ready to go. Thankfully, Brian decides to take Stewie to the hospital to get some real help. Why he decided to bring Chris, we will never know.
Chris, what the hell?
There is a room where you can go in and just get free people.
You know what? While they're here, they may as well get Chris checked out too. It seems like he's been showing signs of a concussion that have lasted a lifetime. And that's made even more apparent in The New Adventures of Old Tom, where Chris decides to eat a $10,000 ring for whatever reason.
I have like a thing for rich guys.
I'll take the ring, and I'll take your number.
Yeah, this also counts as a dumb moment for Brian, spending more than his life is worth on a ring just to impress a girl. At least his stupidity is rooted in a somewhat understandable intention, and he can return the ring for a refund. Chris, on the other hand, what is going on with this kid?
I know I left the ring right here.
If you're referring to the ring that I thought was a lug nut, I ate it.
Oh, well, as long as he thought it was a lug nut, that's perfectly understandable. It's right up there with the highest protein content in the nut family, right next to cashews and almonds. Luckily, it ended up in the stomach of a kid with more bowel movements than brain cells, but leave it to a little bathroom stage fright to keep him from shooting that thing out until the last possible moment.
Ah, it's coming!
Oh my God!
Yes, I'd like to make a return, please.
Maybe this will teach Chris not to eat just any old jewelry he finds laying around. It's a lot safer for you if you cook it all the way through and get a nice little sear on the outside. And Chris would nearly cook himself, Stewie, and Brian to death in Peter Normal Activity when he accidentally locks themselves inside a sauna.
So just relax, take your glasses off, take a nice dry sauna. No glasses in the sauna.
So Stewie and Chris devise a plan to get rid of Brian's new glasses. Not because he needs them, but because he doesn't. Yeah, he's one of those guys. I'm not even sure that there are lenses on those things. But Chris gets a little confused about what he was supposed to be doing.
Chris, what are you doing in here?
I did it. I locked us in the sauna.
You what?
You could have explained this plan to him in Sanskrit, and he probably would have understood just as much as he did when you explained it in English. And it looks like they'll be there all weekend, so this will at least serve as a little preview of what they'll look like as a senior citizen.
Boy, you guys sure look steamed.
As steamed as a steamed ham. It's a Utica expression, you wouldn't get it. And if you are from Utica, then it's actually an Albany expression. But we go from ham to turkey in the episode Turkey Guys, where Chris has to be the man of the house while Peter's gone, leading him to totally crack under the pressure.
Well, the fat man's never going to get back in time, and with him gone, that makes you the man of the house.
I sentence you to death!
Chris, the public executions come after dinner, not before. He's really got a long way to go on learning how to be a proper adult. But he's gonna have to figure it out quickly because pretty soon he'll need to greet guests, be a good host, and give an important Thanksgiving toast.
Boy, yesterday I'm microwaving a cat, today I'm giving a speech. Things move fast around here.
Yeah, as long as you don't count the gears inside his head. Those things have needed some WD-40 for years. So Chris tries his hand at small talk, which quickly becomes a big red flag.
Hi, Grandma. I got some down there hair now. Wanna see?
Look, it's not the best opening line, but Babs still could have contributed a little more to the conversation. I can't stand a one-sided conversation. Well, there is one part of the holiday he gets right, being aggressively drunk.
Are you drunk?
I couldn't handle the pressure, Stewie. We Irish? We have a deep sadness.
You wouldn't think it from a culture with so many fun drinking songs, but I guess those were required to keep the darkness from consuming them. It really seems like Chris can't do anything right, but he channels his primitive nature to provide a turkey for Thanksgiving just like his forefathers did.
The man of the house killed a turkey for Thanksgiving.
If you haven't tried turkey with shell casings embedded in it, I highly recommend it. But this just ends up being yet another example of Chris being given pretty basic instructions and somehow finding a way to make sure everyone is covered in blood by the end. And speaking of blood, let's look at some of the dumbest moments from Stewie. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. Stewie's usually considered the most intelligent out of all the family members, but because he's a baby, he still suffers from some lapses in intelligence, like when he thought he got his first period in First Blood. See? Now that's a smooth segue.
Oh my god, there's blood in my pants! And it's coming from my crotch!
So after a slip and slide accident, Stewie gets an undercarriage injury that he believes is the start of him having his time of the month. And people say teaching this stuff to middle schoolers is too young. The preschoolers out here are just as confused as the rest of them. But this allows Stewie to be as dramatic about it as he wants to.
I'm having my period. It's like the shining elevator down there.
Okay, thanks for the visual. A heavy flow like that is something you don't want to overlook. You know, like the Overlook Hotel. I can tell you've got a smile frozen on your face from that reference. But once that red river dries up, Stewie's left confused and decides to do some further research, coming to another insane conclusion.
Oh my god, Rupert! I'm pregnant!
Yeah, why not? What's another Stewie pregnancy episode? It's not like I hate throwing up in my mouth or anything. And nothing about reality seems to snap Stewie back to it. Well, until they start talking about his figure.
It's just too bad you're gonna gain all that weight.
What?
When you're pregnant, you gain like 30 pounds.
Such are the sacrifices of creating life. It's too bad Stewie isn't the right age and is missing a few of the necessary parts to make that happen. But even without a pregnancy, Stewie still makes the difficult decision to get rid of the thing he didn't have to begin with.
But today I took a morning after cocktail of Flintstones vitamins, Ovaltine, castor oil, and a splash of Dr. Pepper.
Well, his body, his choice. But I think his body's gonna wish he made a different choice when he goes to the bathroom later. Despite his intellect, Stewie sure doesn't understand much about life. Not unless it revolves around technology or murder, which are usually the first few things babies start to grasp onto. And driving is definitely not one of the things most babies grasp, but Stewie decided to try his hand at it anyway, and Stewie goes for a drive.
I should be on Glee!
So that little whoopsie with the car convinces Stewie that he's got what it takes to drive. I don't know what's going on with Priuses, but I'm pretty sure most cars don't change gear without pressing on the brake. Such a nonsense car. Anyway, Stewie doesn't even decide to ask Brian and just straight up steals his car so he can put his driving skills to the test.
Oh my god, Rupert, this is such a thrill! Look at me, I'm driving! I'm driving a real car!
Time to peel out on those little losers still driving their little tykes cars. This is where the big boys play. The boys who have most, if not all, of their baby teeth. But real cars also come with real accidents.
Oh god! Oh my god, I'm in so much trouble!
A concussion and whiplash are child's play compared to the family dog being mad at you. Even if they only remember they're angry for like 5 minutes, it still hurts all the same. But rather than hang around and face punishment for this, Stewie decides to do what most kids and gambling addicts think is the right answer.
Well, that's it. I have no choice. I've got to run away.
And by run away, he means getting picked up by Consuela and adopted into her home. Well, there are certainly worse side characters he could have been picked up by. Honestly, his own family probably falls into that category too. But Stewie finally has a moment of clarity, not about what he did, but about the fact that he knows how to fire a gun.
This is so messed up right now.
I guess shooting a gun is easier than driving a car. Even still, his capabilities are all over the place. Sometimes it's not hard to tell just how much of a baby he actually is. But Stewie would be at his true dumbest when he accidentally erases his genius and turns himself into a normal, full-on baby in Baby Stewie.
I can't control the DNA I was given, but now I can control the DNA I want to keep.
So Stewie worries that once he gets older, he'll become dumb like the rest of the family. To get around that, he builds a device that will remove the DNA that causes this degeneration, leaving him as a genius forever. At least that's how it would have played out had he not fumbled this. I guess the dumb DNA had already started seeping into his brain.
Did it work?
Doggy! Big doggy!
Well, he's still just as observant as ever, I suppose. But yeah, all of Stewie's intellect has been wiped away, leaving him as your typical 1-year-old. Well, typical outside of that football head. There's no science on Earth that can fix that.
Poo-poo! No, we do not touch poo-poo in this family. We do not touch poo-poo.
Easy for you to say, Brian. Everyone has to follow you with a bag wrapped around their hand because you're too lazy to learn to use the toilet. Everything goes back to normal eventually, but for a very brief moment, Stewie got to experience what it's like living with a normal brain like the rest of us. Which makes me feel A-okay about dunking on a baby. Look who the dumb one is now, pants crapper. But now we're on to Meg, who doesn't usually get labeled as dumb compared to the rest of the family. Psychotic and unhinged maybe, but not dumb. That being said, her occasional bouts of psychosis have led her to make some dumb decisions, such as when she tried to make Brian love her in Barely Legal.
Sorry, that was the booze, not you.
So after a drunken kiss at the school dance, Meg gets a bit too attached to Brian. She probably got a little too excited that Brian used tongue. Meg, that's how all dogs kiss. They do that to their own crotch, you aren't special.
I'm going to the mall later. Maybe you can come and help me pick out some underwear?
Of course, the whole time she's completely oblivious to the fact that Brian wants nothing to do with her romantically. And this is getting to trying to date your stepbrother levels of desperation. Just because Clueless did it does not mean it's okay.
I love you too, Brian. And you love me. You do love me, Brian.
Eventually, things get so bad that Meg ends up kidnapping Brian and taking him to a hotel so they can spend some quality time together. You can tell she's really gone off the deep end because getting tied up doesn't usually happen until like the 4th or 5th date. You can't rush these things, Meg, unless you're anticipating being arrested soon, which, yeah.
Don't move, dirtbag!
Holy crap, what the hell is this? Brian, she's a teenager!
Oh yeah, this is all Brian's idea and he just has a weird mummy fetish. It's good they got there when they did though, because Meg's dumb decisions were gonna lead to a big uptick in the need for therapy in this family. They don't even pay for therapy for one of them. You really think they're gonna pay for 2? In order to pay for a brand new purse, Meg made the dumb decision to portray herself as a single mother of an addicted baby in Love Thy Trophy, which leads to Stewie being taken from the family.
What's the little guy's name?
What do you care?
Well, I can't send an unwed teenage mother out on the street without a job.
And Meg really starts to lean into this charade in order to get bigger tips. Look, you gotta do what you can as a server. 15% isn't gonna be enough to cover your hypothetical bills or treat your hypothetical baby's hypothetical addiction to illicit substances.
Welcome to Flappy's. Why don't you have a seat next to my little baby whose deadbeat dad doesn't pay child support?
With the voice of Lacey Chabert, you can get away with anything. No wonder it all goes downhill for her after Mila Kunis comes on. But eventually, Meg's made-up stories fall onto the ears of someone who works in Child Protective Services and later swings by the Griffin house to save Stewie from that den of sin.
Sandy Belfort, Child Services. We're placing this baby in a foster home.
Lies or not, that's probably the best move for Stewie anyway. I mean, just look at that head. The Griffins have probably been sitting on it. But hey, at least Meg's got a brand new purse, so it's not a total loss for the family.
It's easy when you're the unwed teenage mother of a addicted baby.
Luckily, the value of one baby is the exact value of that new purse, so they end up trading it to the foster family for Stewie's return. You'd think Meg would be more than willing, but that look on her face makes me think her priorities aren't in the right order.
Is that a real Prada bag?
Much like her mother, Meg's stupidity often stems from her own selfishness, and maybe a little bit of a psychotic break to go along with it. She's definitely smarter than the men in the family, aside from Stewie, but her lapses of intelligence can cause just as much damage. And the final member of the family is Brian, who used to be considered one of the brightest and most intelligent residents of the Griffin home. All that alcohol must have fried his brain finally, because now he's the worst kind of dumb, the kind that thinks they're still smart. This change in character is reflected in episodes like Dog is My Co-Pilot, where Brian thinks the only way to make it up to Quagmire for a disaster is to cause another one.
I'm taking over. No, Brian, don't you touch anything. Look, I got this.
So when Quagmire has a bathroom emergency while flying, Brian steps in and manages to land the plane with Quagmire's coaching. Crashing and burning to death in the rubble would probably have been a more desired outcome for Quagmire than this.
But just so we get the on-screen labels correct, you're the one who landed the plane, and you're the one who pooped in the sink.
You poop in one sink and suddenly that's all you're known for. Seriously, I got really sweaty one time and the name's just stuck. But the world just isn't ready to learn my real name. But the two go on a press tour that completely tarnishes Quagmire's reputation, so Brian decides to make it up to him by giving him his own heroic moment.
Say, will you look at that? Seems like maybe it's someone's big chance to step up and be the hero.
Thank you for your sacrifice, boat driver. Your possible death will go to the amazing cause of helping a guy build back up his self-esteem. It's too bad Brian doesn't realize that driving a boat isn't the same as flying a plane, as his little gift to Quagmire ends up causing a ton of property damage and injuries to everyone on board.
Damn it, Brian, look what you did! What the hell were you thinking?
Bold of you to assume he was thinking. At least this bout of stupidity was well-meaning. Hopefully well-meaning intentions are enough to cover everyone's medical bills. And Brian's stupidity would make him believe that Lois is looking to have an affair, so much so that he tries to win her over by acting like a character from her writing in Family Guy Light.
It's a description of her every fantasy and desire. This could finally be my key to—
What? Banging my mom?
Well, yeah. Why else do you think the two of you are friends? He's just using you to get to your mom, bro. It's a Stifler's mom situation all over again. And Brian's pretty dumb for conflating smut stories with reality. Unless you're planning on being centuries old and some sort of vampire, I don't think you're going to be able to recreate what Lois is writing.
I had no idea you were into horses.
Sexy, huh?
No, seems like a hassle and expensive.
Also very dangerous if you don't have a clue about horses. What's that old saying? You can lead a horse to water, but walk behind it and it'll try to concuss you?
A mutual bond of trust. Different species, same heart.
But upon further inspection, Brian learns that the story Lois wrote revolves around the grocery store. Girl, you have got to get an actual hobby. But more importantly, Brian sees a handsome clerk there who he thinks Lois is going to have an affair with.
What the hell are you doing here? Don't do what?
Don't have with Horatio. It's not worth it.
Yeah, suddenly the prospect of an affair doesn't sound as appealing when Brian isn't involved. Funny how that works, huh? But it turns out this is all a misunderstanding, and Horatio's just a guy from a group home Lois spends time with.
He's special. He's learning disabled.
I like Coldplay.
Okay, in Brian's defense, this is still a very sus situation from the outside looking in. He's not an idiot for that, but he is an idiot for trying to yet again seduce Lois, knowing she'll never go for it. Gotta respect him for his determination if you really feel like giving him any respect. And Brian would eventually decide to fully embrace his status as an idiot by playing into his dumber side in the episode Our Idiot Brian.
You're so smart. I thought you'd be the perfect person to maybe take the SAT for me.
So in order to get a good SAT score, Meg enlists the help of the person she believes to be the smartest in the family. If only she were in the camp of people who could understand Stewie. A real loss on her end. But when Meg gets the results back, she realizes something we've always known.
That's the worst score in my class!
What?
Damn it! Why did I ever think you were smart?
Beats me, but welcome to the winning side, Meg. Well, now they have it in writing that Brian is dumb, but Peter stands to teach Brian that being dumb isn't actually the worst thing in the world.
Brian, it's fun being stupid. You don't gotta worry about nothing, you don't gotta read books, and you never die.
Well, Brian was already doing those first two things. And not even getting hit by a car could keep this dog down and out, so Peter might be onto something. And so Brian decides to lean into this new identity hard.
Oh man, I am buzzing hardcore off of that chaw, man.
Brian, what the deuce?
Deuce.
I don't know what chaw is, but it seems to have silenced what little brain activity Brian had left. But it turns out Brian's new, dumbed-down personality is actually the result of a brain tumor, one that he isn't looking to get rid of.
I'm never going back to my old self. I rock like this. I'm legit. I'm uber. I'm awesome sauce.
Yeah, I think it'd be best to just leave it be in this case. It eventually takes some trickery to get Brian to have the surgery, restoring him to someone who's still dumb, but a more tolerable level of dumb.
I feel like the main character of As I Lay Dying, as he or she lay dying.
There he is. The family can at least be happy about that for a while until they realize he's still insufferable to live with. And it turns out Brian is even more insufferable when he's hopped up on ADHD medication, which he uses to try to create the next big novel and Pilling Them Softly.
Still on those meds, huh?
Yeah, they helped me to,
So while Stewie works on trying to figure out what to say, Brian continues to criticize the decision of having Stewie on ADHD medicine. Look, whatever you gotta do to work that phony British accent out of his system, I'm here for it. But Meg lets Brian in on a secret second use for those pills.
You know, a lot of kids in my school take ADD pills. They say if you're lazy and unmotivated, it makes you super energized and productive.
Well, those two descriptors describe Brian to a T. After all those years of drinking and smoking, Brian may have finally found a substance that could turn him into a, well, not a good writer, but a writer at least. Never tell a writer they actually have to write to be a writer. They'll get super mad.
God, I can't stop. The words are just pouring out of me.
I heard a guy say a similar thing about his bowel movements in a stall once, and knowing Brian, the quality of what he's putting out is probably just as appealing.
It's a medieval sci-fi universe adaptable to TV, movies, toys, games, and mobile apps.
Kinda just looks like the Cones of Dunshire from Parks and Recreation and probably makes just as much sense. But Brian decides to pitch the idea to writer George R.R. Martin, who reveals the truth about Brian's situation.
You just took a lot of pills, mashed together a bunch of sci-fi and fantasy cliches, and crapped out a 2,000-page turd.
Well, yeah, isn't that what writing is? But this just further shows the hoops Brian will go through to try to convince the world he's a writer rather than just putting in the work. Oh god, there's gonna be an episode in the future where he tries to write a book with ChatGPT, isn't there? And Brian would go through some mental gymnastics to believe the dog-killing factory he's invested in wouldn't come to kill him later in The Wolf of Wall Street.
Been looking at stocks all morning. I'm already up 5% on the day. Wow, good for you.
So Stewie ends up getting Brian really interested in the stock market and trading. Don't get it twisted though. Stocks are not something that's so easy that even a baby can do it. Or a dog. Unless you're a Shiba. Those guys seem to be all over the financial industry.
For every dollar I make, one goes to me and one goes to charity.
I don't know who this charity girl is, but judging by how large Stewie and Brian end up living, she must be getting a pretty good deal. But of course, a lot of money is never enough, and Brian starts to go on the hunt for his next big investment opportunity.
Yeah, it's a great company I found to invest in. Korean. They make protein shakes. The profits are off the charts.
A little tip for wannabe investors. Maybe the business with the logoless, windowless, smoke-belching factory in the middle of nowhere isn't the gold mine you think it might be. But Brian and Stewie quickly learn the secret of what makes these shakes so packed with protein.
I think I know why it's so cheap. They're made of dog meat.
Yeah, but not Brian's dog meat. Don't laugh, you know what I meant. So since this place still looks like a good investment, Brian decides to turn a blind eye to the inhumane business so he can make a little money. But this is just like a chicken investing in KFC.
Ah, yes, we're waiting for you. Here, breathe deeply into this investor's rag.
Classic business technique. Rooster Teeth tried to do the same thing to me back in the day. So of course, Brian's betrayal of his own species nearly gets him killed, only to be saved by Stewie just in the nick of time. It's too bad, because with how dumb Brian can be, the best use of him may actually involve eating him. And the best use of your time now is leaving a like on this video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Be sure to keep an eye out for more great Family Guy content coming your way every week.